so we can go ahead and get started. Today, we are going to review GitHub with pairs. And as it turns out, GitHub for pairs is not really much different than branching GitHub workflow solo. So there's just one, an extra step, and that's what we'll go over today. So we'll understand, or at least start to understand, exploring this Git workflow with branches. We'll go more into that and how that works with a partner. Explore what's called a merge conflict, and then understand some paired GitHub etiquette. Okay, so what I'd like for you to do for a warm-up is go ahead and take a couple minutes and either in a notebook or in a text editor where you're keeping notes, jot down your current Git workflow, and just write out all the commands or what you're doing, including branches. So if you're using a branching workflow, what is your process? So take a couple minutes to reflect on that. I figured if you're watching this, you don't want to just stare at my face for 2 minutes. So we could pause it. All right, cool. Any questions come up just off of that warm up? We're going to review the workflow, but I wanted to get your minds, like a warm up. Your mind's a muscle, just like doing jumping jacks before you go run a marathon. I don't know if that's what you do, but any questions in your Git workflow? Yeah, Gus.
I mean, definitely as far as like the initial cloning versus pull, like I was curious, like what does cloning do for you that like pulling doesn't? Like if you have a repository that's remote and you're trying to create a local copy.
Yeah, great question, Gus. So, and we'll definitely see this in action today, but typically you're only going to clone a repo one time in the very beginning. You'll clone it so that you get that on your local repository or on your machine. And then once it's cloned, you're good to go. And then the process is anytime you need to update your update your main branch on your local, you would do a pull now that you're connected to that repository. So we'll see this in action when I have Meg join as a collaborator on the project, but that's a really good question. So if that doesn't get completely cleared up by the end of this lesson, definitely ask that question again. Sydney.
So I had a question. So I was trying to find it, but yesterday Meg said in one of the threads, I'm sorry, my screen's over here, I apologize. Said in one of the threads that he created a branch for every method. And I was just like, oh, I didn't realize I normally create my branches per class.
So with branches, and actually this is good because, I asked how often do you branch? A branch should encapsulate a piece of functionality. So not even, there's no like a hard and fast rule that says one method per branch. There's no hard and fast rule that says one class per branch. For example, you're going to, let's go to flashcards, right? There was the crux of the problem was that take turn method. So your branch might be called take turn method. And because that's like a huge chunk of that project, that branch would be big enough to justify having a branch. And then, but if you think about all the things you had to do to make that method work, you had to update other methods, you had to tie in other classes, and maybe they needed to have some methods updated. And so those would all be lots of little commits and changes on this branch that is encapsulating one piece of functionality. And I think as your projects get a little larger, that will become a little bit more apparent. For example, you're doing a battleship, right? You're going to have like taking turns in battleship, right? Or doing a shot or a fire. And so maybe your branch is called like execute a fire, right? Or a shot. And so then you're probably going to have to manipulate multiple classes, multiple methods within those classes, add some tests, add some methods and some helper methods, but you're working on one specific piece of functionality.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. It'll make much more sense like as you're thinking about it, and it's something that takes practice, right? You may at the beginning make a branch and then like you're working on it the whole time and realize this branch is way too big. You know, and that's just something you're going to practice and get a feel for. Yeah, great question, Sydney. Cool. All right, so we're going to do this kind of like an example today as I walk through this. I have a project. I'm going to create the project. Meg's going to be my collaborator on the project, and we're going to add some code going through a branching workflow. Okay, so here's how we're starting. I have a brand new project. It's called my planet party. Okay, so that's my project. It's called Planet Party. And so I'm in that project right here. See if I do my present working directory, I can see I'm in my Planet Party directory. Does anyone remember the, like how can I tell if this is already a Git repository? There's a couple ways I could check that. If you want to raise your hand and remind me. Ben, go ahead.
When you're in your directory, you can type ls-a and it'll bring up if you have a .git directory or not.
Yeah, so the ls, remember, lists the contents of your directory. The -a will include the hidden files, which are prefaced with a dot. So if this was a Git repository, I'd be looking for that .git file. But what if I forgot about that? What's another way I could check? Any ideas? Gus, go for it.
In your terminal, it would say at the end of the line the name of the branch that you're in.
If I have it set up.
Right.
Because that's actually like a terminal, what is it called? Like a shortcut, customization that I add.
Oh,
so it doesn't necessarily come with that.
Okay.
But yes, you know, Gus, you've been watching mine and you know that mine does do that and you don't see it. Eli, go ahead.
Git remote V.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay. Oh, actually, so git remote -v. So this will show me if I have any remote repos connected, but if I do any kind of Git command and this is not a Git repository, it's going to say not a Git repository, right? So what I'd like to remember is just a Git status, right? If I just do a Git status, it'll tell me, hey, this is not a Git repository. Right? So lots of different ways that you can tell if you already have a Git repository. Thank you for everyone who helped out with that. So this is not a Git repository. So my first step here, and you know, I might have a little checklist that I work from until I really get the hang of it. I'm in that directory. And so I need to do a git init to establish this as a Git repository. And I'm going to go slightly faster through getting this set up because this is what we went through last week. But if you have questions, please raise your hand. Let's see, I'm going to do this right off the bat so that I don't have anything on master and we can just leave that alone. Great, so now I'm on main. And remember, when I create my repo on GitHub, it will automatically default to main branch. And we'll see that. So cool, okay, so now I have a Git status. No changes, nothing there yet. Okay, so let's see, I just want to set up the structure of this. I don't have any, oh, I do. So it says my untracked files right now is my test directory. So that needs to be staged. And I just have a planet test. So nothing in my planet test yet. I just want to kind of get my project started with some kind of like skeleton so that my partner can actually pull it down and we can both start working on it. But there's got to be something there for us to, you know, connect on in that remote repository. So I'm going to stage my test file. So I'm going to do git add test, and that will add everything in my test directory, which right now is just one file. Now if I do my git status, I can see this is staged, so it's ready to commit. Git commit, and here I'm just going to do initial commit. And that's just, usually you would just do that for the first time when you're establishing the project, not on a branch. I'm just on main, and I'm just doing this so I can get everything connected. Status. Cool, cool. Good to go there. We added the file. We did a commit. Git remote -v. I've got nowhere to send this to, right? Because I didn't set up any remote links. So if I tried doing git push origin main right now, well, what would happen? If you wonder, just try it. Git push origin main says, oh, I have origin does not appear to be a Git repository, couldn't read it. Okay, so my next step here is to actually just create that repository on GitHub. Let me grab my GitHub. Let's click new right here. We'll call this Planet Party 2010. All right, and then we created the repo. So what I'm going to do now is I want to add the origin. So we already did this stuff. So I'm just going to copy this line here. It's already on my SSH as opposed to HTTPS. You want it on SSH. So I'm just going to copy this to add the remote branch of origin to my local. So if we go back here, I've got that added. And now when I do git remote -v, I can see that I am connected somewhere. Joe, question?
What is the difference between the HTTPS and the SSH? I know that we have our SSH keys set up, but
yeah, it's more secure, the SSH, and it just, you know, that's a great question. And I don't know that I could give you all the specifics of what the answer is, but you want to do SSH as much as possible. It's more secure because you've got that key linked up. Cool. Isabel, question?
This is not super a question, but something I remember about that, Joe, is that with the SSH key, when you set it up, it also makes it to where you don't have to put in your password every single time. And so I know that that's also a huge functionality for it.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much, Isabel. Cool. All right, so what were we, okay, we connected our repository. Next step is to just push this up, my local up, because right now there's nothing in this repository still. And Meg's like itching to get to work here, so I need to get this established so she can start working. So git push origin main. Cool. And now if I refresh over here, all right, so now at least there's a test going on here. So what the next thing I want to do is add Meg as a collaborator on my project. Now this keeps moving, but I'm pretty sure it's in Insights. And then, nope, it's not in Insights, it's in Settings. And it's Manage Access. Let's see if I know my password. Okay, so in Manage Access, under Settings, here's you can invite a collaborator. You saw in the other one in Insights, there's contributors and there's collaborators. You want your partner to be a collaborator because they're going to be collaborating on the code. Invite. Okay, Meg. Uh-oh, Meg, which one are you? Are you Meg?
I think I'm just Meg's, yeah. Meg's
okay, perfect. So you'll want to know their GitHub handle. I'm going to add her to this repository. And then she will get some kind of notification. So Meg, I didn't put it, should I push a branch up as well or just let you go ahead and?
I think this is fine. So you made the initial one and then I'll go ahead and get it set up on my local computer and then branch.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to stop screen sharing. Meg's going to go ahead and screen share so that she can show what she's going to do now as the partner. Sydney, did you also have a question?
Yes. So what level of access are you giving Meg?
Push and pull, or what's called push and fetch access so that she can pull anything. She could push up PR requests. She can merge PR requests, which we'll talk about. So she pretty much has full access.
Okay, if she wanted it, like, let's say you were still on master, could she change it from master to main? Or does that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she could do anything on this.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome, so I got, okay. You all can see my GitHub right now?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you. I got an invitation. I have it linked up to my email, so I just got an invitation via email, and then I clicked accept invitation, which brought me right to the screen. So I see Kat Scriver invited you to collaborate, so I'm going to go ahead and accept this invitation. And I'm brought right to the repository. So first thing I want to do is I want to get this down on my local computer so that I'm able to work with it. And so this kind of goes back, I think, to Gus, your question of like cloning and pooling. So this is the first and only time that I'm going to clone this repository. So I'm going to take, and here I'm just going to go ahead and clone this. Take that SSH key, and then let me, oh, you know what? After I had to reboot my computer and I don't have my terminal even up. Come on.
While you get that up, I just want to make a mention for when you're working on a partner project, you don't want to fork because that'll create like a copy on your own, and then those two won't necessarily talk to each other anymore. So you want to make sure when you're working together on a project that you do a clone. Don't do a fork.
Thanks, Kat.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's go to here. Joe, did you have a question?
Yeah, a question on the fork. I did realize that the repo doesn't show up on mine. Like the person that invited, it's on theirs, but since I accepted, the repo isn't on mine. How do you work through that?
Yeah, I think that kind of goes into a few different topics of like, once you're done with your project, you always want to make sure that you have a complete README and that README is also linking back to your account, so that if ever you wanted to put a certain project on a resume or you wanted to show that you worked on something, the README will show that you were a collaborator. The other thing you can do if you really wanted it to be on your GitHub profile in your repositories is you could fork it once the project is done. But then you have the copy of it once it's done. And if you made any changes later on, you wouldn't, or if your partner made changes to it later on, you wouldn't have their changes. So I would say if you did want it to be a part of your repo on GitHub, your repository is less than to fork it once it's all done. Kat, do you have anything else to add with that or any other ways you've done it?
No, that's perfect. Did that answer the question, Joe?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking I was gonna fork it after we're done. So yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. So I cloned that SSH key. If I just look at it right now, I can see I just pasted it on here. That's the SSH key, but I need to actually clone it down. So I'm going to go ahead and say git clone, go ahead and paste my SSH key. And Planet Party 2010, I have to put this in. I've never set it up otherwise. Okay. And then I'm going to CD into that Planet Party. Oops, guess I have another one. 2010. All right. If I take a look at where I am right now, cool. Let me go ahead and open this. I don't even have Atom opened.
Oh, that's the worst.
Reboot my computer. All right. There we go. Okay. And now I'm going to get all of these text editors popping up of things that I had open. Okay. Let's go ahead and try this again. Pull it up. I see it's working somewhere. Great. Let me pull it over to the screen. All right, so as soon as I cloned it down and then I went into that directory and opened it up, I can see in here, if I look at this Planet Party 2010, open up this file, I can see that I have this kind of like hidden Git folder. I can see it's a Git repository, and I can also see that I have this test, that Planet test is in here, and that's what Kat had pushed up, and that's what was on the repo to begin with after that initial commit. And I guess, Kat, do you want me to come in here, kind of like show the branching practice and change something up?
Yeah, I think that's great.
Okay. These branches that we're going to do in this example, this is going to be for like really small pieces of functionality. So like Kat said, it's kind of up to whatever functionality you're adding. But I'm just going to take a branch out to just like create the actual Planet class. I think that sounds good to me for this like quick example. And so this is common practice. So as soon as you cloned it down, me being the partner, I want to work on a new piece of functionality. So I'm going to immediately make a branch so that I'm not working on the main copy. I don't want to work on the main branch ever. So if I run git checkout -b, this will create the branch and move me to that branch. So this is kind of like my shortcut that I do for that, or -branch, one of the two works. So git checkout -b, and I'm going to call this create planet class. Cool. So it says switch to a new branch, create planet class. If I wanted to check my branch, I could say git branch, and I can see, oh, I do have a main branch, and I do also have this create planet class, and that star over here shows me that that's the branch that I'm currently working on. And let me go ahead and, so let's think about like what I want this functionality to be. I'm gonna add a test in here for testing to make sure it exists, and then I'll go ahead and just make a class. So let's say def test it exists. Let's say planet is planet.new, and let's just say it has a name, so I'll put here Saturn. And I want to assert instance of planet. And maybe I'll just go ahead and take a look at this. Git status. I'm going to add this. Just kind of running through this quick. If you have questions, just raise your hand. So added that. If I take a look at my Git status now, I can see that, oops, what do I have here? Just committed it. So everything has been committed. Let me go ahead then and get this test to pass. So to get it to pass, I'm going to need a class for planet. And so I'm going to go ahead and make a folder, new folder for lib. And in here, I'm going to create a planet.rb file, and we'll just kind of run through this real quick. So I should be running my tests, but that's not what this class is called. All right, so class planet, and I need to initialize this with a name. Oh man, okay, there we go. All right, let's run this test, just make sure this works. And it looks like we have all passing tests, all one passing test. All right, so let's say now my piece of functionality, I called this branch. Again, if I want to check it again, because now I forget, git branch, I call this branch create planet class. And I'm like, okay, I finished that piece of functionality. I'm done with this. I want Kat to have access to this because right now, the only place that this code lives is on my local computer. There's none of this code that I just wrote down is on GitHub. I have to not only commit everything here, but I also have to push it up and make a pull request so that Kat can have access to it to pull down. So take a look at my Git status. I can see that I have content from my lib folder that I haven't added yet. So I'm going to go ahead and add lib and take a look at my status again. Okay, that's staged for commits. So I'm going to go ahead and git commit-m, add planet class, sure, and take a look at my status. And I want to go ahead and push this up. So this is already all done. And I'm going to use this branch name to say that I'm pushing up this branch. So git push origin. So git push origin. So I'm pushing this branch to my origin. That's kind of how I read that. All right. We can kind of break this down a little bit, but really what this is telling me here, create a pull request for create planet class on GitHub by visiting that website, right? The website is just the path to get to Kat's repository that she had created. And so this still isn't on the main branch. It's still living on the branch. I've just pushed the branch up to GitHub. So if I take a look at, let me go ahead and pull up. Yeah, okay, this refreshed on its own. So I can see when I go back to this repository, I can see in this like yellow bar up here, create planet class, that's the branch name, had recent pushes less than a minute ago. So when I see this, I can go ahead and take a look and possibly make a pull request if I definitely want this code to be available for Kat to see. Kat, is this kind of what you wanted me to do, going through this process?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and click on here. And in a pull request, when I'm kind of like, I like to think of a pull request as like a recommendation for merging your code, or a recommendation of code. So it's like, okay, I made these changes. What do you think of this? And so that's kind of like what I feel like I'm asking Kat in these pull requests. So I do like to put in here, when I'm making a pull request, some type of comment that says what this does, so that she has an idea of what it's doing. So I could say like, this PR adds a test for checking to make sure that a planet instance can exist. And there's code that initializes a new planet object. So just something quick. You also can look into PR templates, pull request templates to add into here. That's kind of nice. And like a nice way to like check off boxes saying like, oh, all my tests still pass. Oh, this is what this did. And you're welcome to take a look into that if you'd like. Not something that we require of you though. And I can also see up here, it's saying like this planet class, if I wanted to merge it into main, it's saying that it's able to merge. There's no conflicts right now. So the code that I added doesn't conflict with any of the code that's on that main branch. So it's telling me that it's able to get merged. And so that tells me, okay, I think I'm good to go. I can go ahead and make this pull request. And I can also see it down here saying like, you are still able to, I can still merge this. But when you are working in a group, you never want to merge your own pull requests, since this is a collaboration between partners. And so you want your partner or partners to merge that pull request for you. Take a look over it and merge it. So I think that's it on my end.
Cool.
Is that right, Kat?
Yeah, that looks good.
Cool. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing.
Perfect. So now maybe, and in our DTR, Meg and I probably established some kind of norm where, you know, when a pull request goes up, maybe she sends me a Slack and says, hey, Kat, I just did a pull request, because I also have all my GitHub alerts silenced because there's too many of them. So I won't get the alert. But if you're pair programming, you'll know when your partner put a PR up. But even though it seems trivial to not merge your own PR in this environment, you still want to do that to get into the habit of never merging your own PR, okay? Even if you both were working with each other that whole time. So let me share my screen. And also, Meg, if you want to, on yours, like I want to force a merge conflict, so maybe like add another something, but not for the name, because I'm going to add a test for the name. If you want to just add like something else to the test.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Do you want me to do that now, or once you're done writing yours?
You can just do it now.
Okay.
So that my next PR will have a merge conflict, if that makes sense.
So like add another attribute. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right, cool. So PR. So I know Meg has a PR up. So what I'm going to do is come over here to my GitHub, and I can see here there's a pull request with that little one right here. And so if I go over here, I can see Meg's created a pull request. Here's the message that she put. Here's the commit. So I can review this, and then we'll take a pause after this piece. So I can see right here where it says files changed. This is where you want to visit. And so this will show you, the red is what she deleted and green is what she added. So we can go through this, and you'll notice on your rubric for the grading that it asks for PR comments. So this is what this is for. Like maybe she used a different variable name, and I could say like, is this what we want to name the attribute? And I can add a comment like that, and then she can reply. And this is a way, it's gonna seem very trivial to be doing this, especially when you're pair programming, but the idea is to start getting into the habit of leaving comments on pull requests, just to clarify code and have that, it's a place to have a conversation about the code or to clear up anything that's unclear. So, but say like she said yes, and then we had a conversation about it on Slack, so I can resolve it. You don't have to have those resolved, but you surely can. And then we can go back over to conversation. And I think this all looks good. It checks out. So I'm going to merge this pull request. Also, it says there's no conflicts. We'll look at what the conflicts look like when we come back from the POM. But right now, there's no conflicts. I can go ahead and merge this, confirm. Cool, and everything looks good. So we are all updated. If I go back to my code, that's merged, and I can see here that her, that class she added is now on the main branch. Okay, what questions do you have before we take a POM? And then when we come back, I'll do another branch. Ben?
Yeah, so I think when I was working with my pair, I think we forgot the clone step. So can you just do that, and then because we were working and then like tried to do the push, and it was like it had that error. It was like it was when you hadn't created the repository on GitHub yet. It was that error, and it was similar. So can we just do like the git clone now, and it'll still it'll have the stuff that's on GitHub right now. So we might have to kind of work backwards a little bit, but then we'll both have access to push and pull and stuff like that, right? I just kind of wanted to,
yeah.
You can do those out of order.
Yeah, you can clone at any time. You just want to make sure you just clone once. So then then as soon as you have it, then you should be all set up and good to go.
Cool.
But yeah, of course, if you're working through like specifics and you hit a snag, you can definitely ask in the code help channel. And that way, you know, if one of us, the instructors, see it, we can kind of help you out with it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Ben. All right, cool. Let's take a 5-minute POM and we'll come back and pick up. Okay, cool. So where we left off, we had just merged in Meg's PR request. So now, interestingly enough, remote has all the updated code, but my local does not. So if we look here, I'm on main, but if I go over to my Atom, if I look in my file tree here, I don't have that. I have the lib directory, but I don't have that class that she created, that planet class, right? Which makes sense because this doesn't automatically update whenever the GitHub repository is updated. So what I have to do is actually pull down the updated main to my local to have that updated code. And I want to do this so that when I create my next branch, I'm working off the most up-to-date code that we have. Okay. So what I'm going to do is here, let me clear this so you can see it. I'm going to do a git pull origin main. Okay. And so this goes to origin on the GitHub repository, gets that main branch, and was going to pull it down into mine. And it updated stuff. So now when I go over here to my file tree, I can see that I do have the code that Meg wrote. My test has been, updated. Oh yeah, I had an empty test before. So that's been updated. So now I've got the most up-to-date code, which means I'm ready to go to start work on my own branch. So what I will do, again, it's gonna be a little bit trivial for my branch just for the sake of time. So what I'm going to do is go through that workflow. I'm going to go a little bit faster with the branching workflow because the goal right now is to show you what a merge conflict looks like. So right now, I'm going to go on a branch. Meg's working on her own branch right now on some other functionality. And so we can work separate. So I'm going to do git checkout -b. I'm going to add this has a name attribute, but doesn't have like a test or a way to actually read that name attribute. So I'm going to do create planet name attribute. Now this is in your project, this is way too small of a piece of functionality for an actual branch. So I just want to point that out, but just for the sake of this class and for display, that's what we're going to name the branch. Cool, so I'm on that branch. I'm just going to add a quick test here to add a test for the name. Okay, so just a quick test here to check for the name attribute. I want to add that so I can actually document my TDD process. Oh, did I do that right? Git stats. Okay, yes. Git commit -m add test for planet name. Cool, and then we can go over here and add the code to make that test pass. I can't commit it without actually running the test. It's just like it feels so wrong. Okay, that passes. So status, we're gonna get add that, git commit, add name method to planet. Cool. All right, so we're good to go. But before I do anything else with this one, Meg has finished her branch and she actually submitted a PR. So what I want to do is, I'm still working on mine. I'm not sure yet if my tests are passing and all that. So what I'm going to do is come over here to my repo. She has a pull request, add distance. Ooh, that's a fun attribute. Add distance from sun attribute. There's no conflicts with the base branch. I'm going to check out files changed. Okay, cool. So she added this attribute distance from sun. I like it. Great attribute. Good thinking. Cool. I don't have any questions, or maybe I do have a question. Is this accurate? And then we can have a conversation about if that is accurate. So here I'm really just trying to show you like how you can leave comments on a PR since that is in your rubric. Cool. All right, so I'm going to go back over to conversation. This all looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and merge this pull request. Cool, cool. All right, so that's been updated. And now I can go back and do some more work on my code. Okay, so, and then I double check it. Oh, good, my work is done. Look at that. So now what I want to do is merge my branch in. Or I'm sorry, I want to push up my branch to do a pull, my own PR. I'm just trying to think of showing, should I show the git pull origin main into the here, Meg, so that the merge conflicts in my text editor?
I think either way, or what if first you push up so we can see like what that merge conflict looks like on GitHub, and then we can talk about like a way to resolve it beforehand.
Perfect. All right, cool.
Or you can show how to resolve it locally.
Awesome. So this branch is done. I'm committed, or I'm committed. I have everything committed. So let me do a git push origin, create planet name. This is a long branch name attribute. Okay. So I'm going to push that up. I think it'll tell me here. No, it did not tell me. So, okay. All right. So now when I go over here, I have my branch pushed up and I'm going to do compare and do a pull request. And so here, do you see this? It has a red X and says can't automatically merge. Okay. So that means there's some kind of merge conflict. Now I can still create the pull request, but I want to fix whatever this merge conflict is. So one way we can fix that, you can fix it here in GitHub, but to be honest, to me that is confusing and a little more difficult to actually fix it in GitHub. I guess I could show that though, just so you can see it, and then I'll fix it actually in my text editor. So all tests are passing.
And notice also, Kat is taking care of this merge conflict. I'm not taking care of it. So if you push something up and you notice that there's a merge conflict, that usually is going to be your responsibility. You can talk to other people and say like, hey, help me out. I have a merge conflict. Like, what do we want to keep and what don't we want to keep? Or what do we want to get rid of? But since Kat was the one that kind of created this merge conflict, Kat's going to kind of take it upon herself to fix it before making her actual pull request.
And something I want to point out too is merge conflicts is a normal part of Git workflow. So you want to get comfortable with handling them. It's not a bad thing. It's a normal part of workflow. Now, if you're working driver navigator, you're probably working one branch at a time. You probably won't encounter many of these. But if you're working separate on two different branches, that's when you might encounter these merge conflicts. Okay, so I can still create my pull request, right? But my partner will never merge it until it's resolved. And they can't anyways. This merge is grayed out and it says there's some conflicting files. You need to go resolve that. So there's two ways you can resolve it. You can click this resolve conflicts button right here. But it's all funky in here and you can't test your code. So I don't really recommend resolving your conflicts in here. So what I'm going to do is instead I'm going to resolve it in my text editor. So how we do that is I need to pull the main branch into my create planet name attribute branch. So basically what's going on is when I merged Meg's PR, the main branch got updated, but my branch is still behind, right? My branch does not have those changes. So I want to update my branch code. So I'm working with the most up-to-date code from main. And then that way I'll be able to ensure I'm working with Meg's code as well. And sometimes you just got to play with it for it to really make sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm in my branch, right? Still in my branch, but I'm going to do a git pull origin main into my branch. So I'm updating my branch. And it's going to show me, hey, let's wait a second. You've got some merge conflicts in these two files. So in Atom, here's what that looks like. Let me get rid of this one. So in my planet class, you can see there's our changes, their changes. So our changes is what I just added, and their changes is what's coming in from main. And this wants me to resolve this. It says, look, line 5 here, they're different. Which one do you want? Well, what I want is I want line 3, but I also want line 7, since that's what Meg added. So if you click on, see this, there's like 3 little dots right here, and you can resolve it. Resolve as ours. We'll just keep the pink part. Resolve as theirs just keeps the blue part. I can resolve both of them together. What I'm going to do, I want pieces from both of it. So I'm going to say resolve theirs, then ours. All right, so that didn't work out perfectly. That's okay. That's why we review it. So I'm going to get rid of this and then move this down. Cool. So now that looks like, here's what I added with the adder reader. Here's the code that Meg added, the distance from sun attribute. So now I've got that all together. Okay, I've reserved that one, but there was a conflict in the other file too, the test file. So if I open that, we can do the same thing. Oh, that's weird. I don't know why this one didn't give me the pretty stuff or like the pink and the blue. But basically I want to delete any of this stuff because I do want this test has a name. Okay, there was just extra spacing. Meg, is this correct? Did you have a test?
Yeah, I did have a test. I think spacing might have been the issue. And I also think with this, I added that attribute on line 7. I don't know if that had anything to do with
line
that.
7 right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But maybe run it. I think you
Yeah.
probably were planning to do it. Run it, make sure that that test still passes.
Perfect. Oh, it does not. Wait.
Oh yeah.
Because I have the wrong number of arguments. Oh, right here. Okay, cool. So everything's passing. So I'm gonna say we're good to go. Oh, that's fine. There's no reader for this. It's just a attribute. Cool, so I've resolved all the merge conflicts. Code still looks good. If I look at my Git status now though, I've got some changes because I made changes. So I actually have to add and commit those changes. So I'm gonna do git add. I'm just gonna add both of these. So you can put spaces and add multiple files with your git add. Make sure I did that right. Okay, and then my commit, I can say fixes merge conflict. Cool, so now this branch is good to go and doesn't conflict with that main branch anymore. So what I can do is push this again, create planet name attribute, and what it'll do is it'll actually update my PR for me. So I don't have to submit a new PR, but see here now, there's no more merge conflicts, and this would be good to go. So then Meg would be able to merge this, update main, and then we would both update main on our local, git checkout is how you move back to the main branch. And then when she merges the PR, I would pull main back down, wash, rinse, repeat. Okay, I know we just threw so much stuff at you. What questions do you have right now? Jesus?
Okay, so I noticed that we had our code in my partner's repo, and then so I cloned it down. But if I switch to the branch he was working on, I'm able to see the code without being it merged to the main. I'm able to do that. So now question is, if he continues to work in that branch, can I work on that branch, or is that something you're not supposed to do?
Yeah, good question. So you wouldn't both want to be working on the same branch. You can, if you're doing like a ping pong style, where, you know, if you can't work driver navigator and you're working on a branch, you push it up, but it's not done. And then your partner can pull down that branch and continue working on it. But you would not want to be working on the same branch simultaneously. So that's what the whole branch flow is, you know, trying to solve that problem. So when Meg was updating, adding that distance to the sun, she was working on her own branch.
Right.
And I was working on my own branch. So we have two separate branches. That way, like, you know, we can each do whatever we need to do and then merge it back to main.
So the question is, if you're working and something happens and you need to go and you just want to commit quick and just save the changes and push them up or whatever, and then I want to pick up from that end, but the code we were working on is not pretty. There's some bugs. You don't want to put that in the main, right?
Right.
So then on my level or in my local, when I get my partner pushed it there, you know, because he had to go or whatever he had, and then now I want to keep working on that end, but it's not in the main, it's in the branch. So at that moment I can switch to the branch, keep working on that, and then fix it, push it back up. And if it's pretty at the point, we can merge it to the main. Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense then. Cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah, everything you just said is exactly what you would do, because you can push up a branch to GitHub and you just wouldn't create a pull request. That way, like you or your partner can pull down just the branch to keep working on it if you wanted to. So awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Aiden, question?
Hi, yeah. I think I missed this part, but did you create a pull request still even when you had the merge conflict?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and you don't have to, right? You could fix the merge conflict first. So usually what I do in my Git workflow is when I am done with a branch and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go, I want to push this up. Before I even push it up, I'll do the git pull. I'm in main right now, but if I was back on the branch, I would do, where is it? The command git pull origin main into my branch. I don't know why not into main, but I would do that when I'm on my branch, because then that will show me right away if I have any merge conflicts. And then I can resolve those before I even submit a PR or request a PR. But you can request the PR, and then that sometimes is the indicator to say, hey, wait, you have merge conflicts. You need to fix these first before we can continue.
Okay, so get pull origin main on, and then going into that branch and opening the files. That's what opened that like blue and pink interface.
Yep.
In your text editor. Okay.
Yeah, because when I did that, if oh, here we go. See, it shows me when I did the get pull origin main when I was on my branch, it tried, and then it said conflict, and so that let me know which files to look in to resolve those conflicts.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question, Mike.
Yeah, can we pass branches in between partners without having to push it up and pull down an incomplete branch?
You still need to push it up to GitHub, because that's kind of like the, you know, the holder of the repos. Otherwise your machines have no way to talk to each other. So you can push up a branch and then your partner can pull it down. You can do that back and forth without merging it to main, but you still need to push it up to GitHub.
Is that considered like clean practice, like okay practice?
Yeah, you can do that in paired programming. I think that's called the ping pong method, where you like ping pong a certain branch back and forth. If you're working driver navigator though, I wouldn't do that. I would just work on one branch, push it up, do a PR, and then do a new branch.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Max.
Yes, I just had a question on when you've got multiple branches, would you ever want to pull request one branch into another branch instead of going into main? And what would that look like?
I think, is there ever a situation where you'd want to do that? Probably, but not here and not in this project. So right now we want to keep it as like simple as possible. And just keep going from the main to a branch. And if we can just get that rhythm down, then we'll be good. There are some other situations where maybe you'd have multiple branches and you do some kind of like cascading, like I'm going to pull here and then push it here. But that's definitely much more complicated, adds that complexity. So I wouldn't recommend doing that now. Cool, great question. Ben.
Yeah, this is kind of also piggybacked on Jesus's question of like, if if you're working, in the field or whatever, and one of your partners is, it has to kind of leave their branch open. Can you create a branch from their branch and then finish what they were working on and then push your branch into the main?
You can, though you would probably want to just continue working on their branch rather than having all these like loose ends being created. And you got to be careful when you do a branch off of a branch, because then you're getting further and further away from what main is. So I would say in that situation, you'd either do like that ping pong and just continue working on their branch, and then just merge that one into main. Cool. Right. Joe, question.
Yeah, so I just had a question about the ping pong method. So you can do a get origin pull without it being merged to main. So it's like still in that waiting for that merging process. Like your partner wants you to look at their branch and work on it. Before you merge it to main, you can pull all of that down and see that there's still a branch in there.
Yeah, you could do a pull for, and I think it might be called a fetch. We'd have to Google like the actual name or the get command.
Because you do get origin or get pull origin, then the branch name. You wouldn't do main.
Right. So, but, well, you wouldn't want to pull it, because pulling something down will try to do like a merge. And so I think it's a fetch is what the command is if you're doing like a ping pong and you're just wanting to pull down that branch. Because if you'll notice here in my GitHub right now, or on my local, if I do git branch, I can see my 2 branches, but I can't see all the
Right.
branches that are here. So I'd have to like fetch those, bring them to my local in order to do that ping pong.
And you just do that individually. There's no way to just like fetch all the branches so you can have all of those on your computer and kind of look through those.
You'd have to keep doing a get fetch.
Okay.
Get fetch. I would say that that's not something I do regularly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Good questions. Phil.
Hey, Kat, I was hoping you could reiterate the process. So when you have a merge conflict, the way that you get into that in the terminal, the command, the workflow of that, essentially you just run git pull origin main, and that gets you into the spot that Aiden asked about to make changes. Is that the only command that is needed to get to that point?
Yes. If there's a merge conflict, when you're on the branch and you do a git pull origin main, it will, that's when it will indicate to you, hey, wait a minute, you've got some conflicts. You need to resolve those. So that would be the time that it shows you that. If you forget to do that step, that's okay, because when you push the branch up and try to go do a PR, it'll give you that error message also. And then you can come back to your local and say, okay, let me do that git pull origin main into my branch so I can see what the updates are.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Okay, those are all super good questions. And more questions will come up. But what I want to do is put you into pairs. Okay, there'll be one not pair. And have you practice this Git workflow. So what I'll have you do is I'll put some instructions in your,
You can put me in a pair, Kat, and then
okay.
you don't have to have a group of 3.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Meg.
Yeah.
So what you'll do, you're going to just pretty much mimic and go through exactly what we just went through. So have one person like create a new project, push up the skeleton, create a new repo, add the partner as a collaborator, then let the collaborator screen share to make sure that they're cloning it and pulling it down. And then both of you should create a branch, make some kind of test, and it could be the exact same thing that we did, like this planet party test, but both of you make a different test, merge one of them, and then you should see that the next branch has a merge conflict, and then you'll be able to navigate how to figure that out. But do it on like a new project so you don't get scared of breaking your like Battleship project. Don't do it on Battleship yet. Okay. All right. Any questions about what you're going to be doing in your breakout rooms? Okay, I'm creating them right now. Give me 1 second here. Okay, they look good. So, right, go, breakout rooms are open. All right, so I popped into most of your rooms and there was some questions. One thing that did come up that I wanted to mention is that typically in a normal workflow, say like you are on a project and you're working on some branch. Oh, it's very noisy. Sorry, let me mute all of you.
Oh.
It wasn't just one person, everyone, like almost everyone was unmuted. So I think that happens when you come back in from breakout rooms. But say you're working on some piece of functionality and you finish and you submit a PR, your partner merges it, main is updated, right? Then what you want to do is on your local, actually maybe we didn't show this, but on your local, what you'll want to do is switch back over to main, do a git pull origin main to make sure that your main is updated with any updated code. And then you want to create a new branch. So you don't really want to work. So my create planet name attribute branch, I'm probably never ever going to work on that branch ever again, because that piece of functionality is done, check mark over, we're done with that branch. Okay. Now, if something needs to be updated on that branch, you could go back to it. But personally, I prefer what's called working forward or fixing forward. If I notice something in that branch that was a mistake, I might make a new branch to correct it, maybe add some other functionality, and then push that branch up, merge it, do a PR, update my main, and then create a new branch for the next piece of functionality. So you don't really want to work on old branches. Joe, question.
Yeah, question to add on to that. I think the default message after you merge is like delete the branch. Do you usually do that, or?
I don't. You certainly can, but you don't have to. What you'll notice is maybe not for Turing projects, but for other, like when you start working, there, like a project, the code repo for the company you work for, has been worked on for years and years and years. You can just imagine how many branches that thing probably has had. So when you do git branch, there might be like 50 branches here. So at that point, I would definitely say like you can delete that branch off of your local. One thing that I don't think is necessary though, if you look here at your code, and there's this branches section here, you don't need to go in here and delete branches. Because this kind of has that history for you of everything that's happened and who did it. So you don't want to delete the branches on GitHub. But if you want to, if you don't like clutter on your local machine, you can definitely delete a branch off of your local. Yeah, great question. Adam, question.
Yeah, I had a quick question. I can share my screen if I'm not clear, but
sure.
When I pull from the main, sometimes I get this warning, like it works, but I get this warning first. It says pulling without specifying how to reconcile divergent branches is discovered, something about squelching.
Right, I remember we saw that. I don't know, because mine doesn't do that. That would be something I would Google to see like, what is this warning telling me? Because sometimes warnings are like if there's an update or maybe you're not following a procedure that's been implemented. Oh, I don't even know. I've never heard of squelching before.
It recommends some solution, but I don't even know what that means. Something about git config global. I'll Google it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we have, so on your main at your root directory, you have a git config that kind of allows, like that's how I have this set up to show, the main. And that's where you can set up like git shortcuts or aliases. So definitely Google like squelching with the git config, and we can try to figure out what is funky in your configuration that's causing that warning. Cool. Glad it's still working for you though. Aiden, question?
Hey, yeah. So we weren't able to like create a conflict for some reason. We both created a branch and on our own, and then pushed it, and then we both created like different pull requests, and both of them would like merge without conflict each time. Were we missing a step there?
Were they different files, or did you create the same file?
I think that's where we were going wrong. I think we tried that and it still didn't work, but I don't know.
So
it was weird.
Sure. What's hard? It is hard to force a merge conflict when you want to merge conflict. They always happen when like you don't want them to happen. But what GitHub does is it tracks lines. And so it'll look in a specific file, like on line 2, it says this. And if it senses a change and it knows how to put that into line 2, then it's good to go. The merge conflicts happen when it's like line 2 from main and your file look totally different. And they're like, I have no idea how you want me to get this together. Gotcha. Yeah, so it's got to be in the same file that the changes and on the same like lines.
Okay, I had one more quick question, and I can Google it if it's too complicated. But when I do git origin or git pull origin main, sometimes it like throws me into a Vim session. Do you know why I'd be doing that?
No, not if you do a git pull. Sometimes if you try to do like a commit, it'll throw you into a Vim session. It's what it's wanting when it does that usually is some kind of message, like it wants an input. And so to get out of that, if you do like escape:*Q, it'll get you out of the Vim session. But usually it's doing that when it wants some kind of message. But you know what's funny? Can you see my terminal right now? Mm-hmm. I don't know why mine does this, but when I do git branch, it actually throws me into a Vim session and to list the branches, and then I have to press Q to get out of it. I don't know why mine does that.
So it's just a configuration.
Yeah,
probably.
totally. Because if
Okay,
you notice when
gotcha.
Meg did that, it just listed her branches, which is probably what it does on yours. So,
okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions or any other like confusion about anything like GitHub, branching, partner work, things like that? Yeah, Adam.
Yeah, one question. So in Googling a little bit and researching, I came upon this term fast forwarding your branch. Is that something we need to worry about, or?
What does it do?
I don't know.
I don't know
That's the
either.
solution it's telling me to do, but I'm wary to do it. All right.
For that, interesting. I'm not sure why it would do that. So fast forward is typically, I'm not even positive. I've never actually used that command, but you can be at different places along the commit history in your branch. And so if you're behind, you can fast forward to the beginning or to the current state. But I personally have never used that one. There's so many Git commands that, I am not an expert by any means. If you can get super comfortable with all this stuff, you should be good to go. Adam, can you drop me like a screenshot of the error message or the warning that you get?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. James, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick note. Max and I, we ended up working on the same branch. And then to resolve that merge conflict, we pulled the branch instead of the main and then went into the Atom editor and resolved it there and then pushed. Instead of if you're working on two branches and you push the main or pull the main, if you pulled and then pushed the branch, it worked the same way.
Interesting. Okay, awesome. You typically won't find yourself working on the same branch as someone else. But so that's interesting. But yeah, and then it kind of acts just like that's the baseline. And so anything that's different will need to be resolved there. So, but cool. Glad you experimented with that. Awesome. Cool. Any other questions? Good to know. Cool. So, again, like GitHub's going to feel funky and scary and murky, but once you get the hang of it, it just becomes second nature. And it's definitely a skill. You're going to use GitHub or something very, very similar to GitHub on the job. So it is something that you want to be familiar with. So cool. All right. Well, that's all I've got for you today. So thanks for being here. Let us know if you have any questions. Please, please, please use a branching workflow with your partner. You should never, ever work on main. Always work on a branch unless it's that initial commit. Yeah, and let us know if you have any questions. The one-on-one schedules will be up. They should be up now.